Kemba Walker's time with the Boston Celtics is over. The four-time All-Star first signed with the team just 2 seasons ago for a 4-year contract worth over $141 million. But now he's being traded for a 35-year-old Al Horford, while the Celtics also gave up a first-round draft pick in order to get rid of him. So why the sudden change of heart? And was the trade really that lopsided? Sit back, relax, and take this in. Before we jump into the video, I just want to tell you guys to subscribe to our channel. We are almost at 65,000 subscribers, and you can help us get there. Now back to the video. When the Celtics inked the then 29-year-old Walker to a 4-year contract, there was excitement in the city of Boston. Walker was joining a talented pair of young superstar-level wings in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and the Celtics, especially their fans, were ready to move on from the strenuous relationship that they had just had with their other star-level point guard Kyrie Irving. It was also a chance for Walker, who had seen very little playoff success in his 8 seasons in Charlotte, to impact a team with championship-level aspirations. Under the tutelage of Brad Stevens, Walker thrived to start the 2019-2020 season, averaging 21.8 points, 4.1 rebounds, and 5 assists per game, while shooting better than 38% from behind the arc, and secured his 4th All-Star appearance in the process. The Celtics were also winning a lot. They had the 4th best record in the NBA pre-All-Star game with a record of 38-16. Heading into the All-Star break, Kemba was dealing with some swelling in his knee, and despite that, opted to play 29 minutes in what is no doubt one of the best and most intense All-Star games in NBA history. That pressure on his knee ultimately bled into the second half of the season. Walker would only play 10 games to finish off his 2020 campaign, averaging a disappointing 14.4 points per game on under 40% shooting from the field. But despite that, the Celtics made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last season, and Walker himself hit some big shots in the process.
Ibaka's got Walker on the switch. Step back, Walker. We've seen that before. And it's a 3-point lead for Boston.
This season, Cardiac Kemba struggled to regain form. He missed the first 11 games of the season, receiving stem cell therapy on the same knee that had bothered him. And the Celtics began to rest him on back-to-backs, and when he was on the floor, wasn't nearly the same productive player he was prior to injury. Walker wasn't an injury-riddled player prior to coming to Boston. He had only missed 6 games in his last 4 seasons in Charlotte. But the Celtics as a whole struggled through an array of injuries this season, and multiple players entered the league's health and safety protocol. They ultimately finished with the 7th best record in the Eastern Conference and lost in 5 games to the Brooklyn Nets in round 1, with Walker being shut down for the final 2 games of the series due to injury. The disappointing season led to some shakeups in the Celtics front office. President of Basketball Operations Danny Ainge retired after 18 years on the job, and the Celtics promoted Stevens to take his place, leaving a still vacant void in the head coach spot. Just 8 days later, it was reported that the Celtics and Walker had both wanted to mutually part ways. Reportedly, Walker, Ainge, and Stevens had had a strained relationship ever since the Celtics had tried to trade for Drew Holiday in a package that centered around Walker prior to the season. Walker reportedly no longer felt wanted. And that's how we get to this trade. The Celtics sent Walker and the 16th pick in this year's NBA draft and a 2025 second-round pick in exchange for former Celtic Al Horford, 7-foot prospect Moses Brown, and a 2023 second-round pick. But was that the best the Celtics could get for a 4-time All-Star? Many analysts and fans had suggested a Kristaps Porzingis for Walker swap. 2 guys who had thoroughly underperformed compared to their respective contracts, but at least from a fit perspective, made sense for both teams. If you take into consideration the nagging injuries to a small 31-year-old guard, plus the $73 million owed to him over the next 2 years, it becomes tricky to find teams willing to take on his salary. The Celtics were also inching closer and closer to luxury tax territory, which is $136 million next season. And with over $134 million in salary commitments on their books with Walker, it would have made it increasingly difficult to re-sign Evan Fournier, who they traded for at the trade deadline this season. Getting rid of Kemba's contract gives the Celtics some much-needed cap relief. The thing is, the player the Celtics traded for also has a bad contract. The 35-year-old Horford initially left Boston, signing a 4-year, $100 $110 million deal with the Philadelphia 76ers, who in turn traded him after just one season on the roster. Horford is still owed $53 million over the next 2 seasons, but his 2022-2023 salary is only partially guaranteed for $14.5 million, instead of the $26.5 million owed. Essentially, the Celtics can keep Horford for this season and then let him go next season and open up even more cap space. And this trade does make sense for Stevens' first move as the head honcho, who called Horford pivotal when he was with the Celtics. But the fit is still questionable at best for the Celtics. Arguably, the best part of the trade for them was getting the 21-year-old Brown, who shined towards the tail end of the season for Oklahoma City. As for the Thunder, they not only have a chance to have 3 picks in the top 20 in this year's NBA draft now, but they also can maintain hope that Walker, in a new environment, recoups some of his value, potentially allowing them to move off his salary as soon as the trade deadline next season. This doesn't seem like it will be the only transaction in what will surely be a busy offseason for the Celtics. They need to find a new head coach, and they have to find a way to add some much needed depth to fill out the roster in hopes of building a contender around Tatum and Brown. Walker was just the first domino to fall. So what do you think? Was it the right move for the Celtics, or will they regret trading Cardiac Kemba? Let us know what you think in the comments.